Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidtless Live. Oh man, what a week it's been, and it's going to be a great show today because I've got Anthony Ticknor. He's at Irish Titan, and we're going to talk all about hiring developers. We're also going to talk a little bit about if you're a developer and you're looking for that next job or your first job or looking to move up the ladder, what are some things you should know? Anthony's going to tell us all. He's great. So remember, Schmidtless Live is a show dedicated to inspiring leaders in design and technology. And before I get started into my exciting interview with Tony, I want to let you know that speaking of hiring, we're hiring. So check out foundrymakes.com/careers. If you're interested, we're hiring for all sorts of different roles. So love to see you there. Let's jump right in and talk to Tony. Tony, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Kurt, how are you doing?
Oh, living the dream, living the dream. I'm much better now that you're here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, you're going to carry the show, so I mean that's what the plan is. Anthony, you and I have worked together in the past, and now you're at Irish Titan. What is Irish Titan? What do you do there? What's the whole thing about?
Yeah, so I'm the director of technology at Irish Titan. I lead our development and design groups. And what we do there is we're an e-commerce agency. We are focused on working with B2B, B2C companies who are looking to sell things on the internet, which seems to be a lot of people these days, right?
Yes, a lot of people want to sell things on the internet now.
One thing that I love about there and working there is we are really dedicated to business first. So that idea is business first and online second. So we're there to talk with our clients, with the people we work with, and find out what is the problem with their business. Do you need to sell more widgets? Do you need a better conversion rate? Is your platform going to be sunsetted soon? And what can we do to make that stuff better? What can we do to solve those pain points? So
awesome.
And I heard at the beginning you said you're hiring. I also want to say that if you don't want to work for Kurt, I is also hiring. I'll get a fancy graphic on the screen here at some point that says we're hiring. So.
Yeah, great. Look at this. We're not only going to talk about how to hire developers. We're actually hiring developers. So
we're doing live interviews today. Surprise.
That's cool. So let's jump right in. One of the hardest things for me growing through my career was hiring engineers because, you either have people who have a, computer science degree and they have this huge background, or, they kind of shifted careers at some point and moved in. There isn't really a standard way to get into development, right? I mean, it's all across the board. So what are some of the foundational things you look for when you're when you're looking to hire a developer? Is it that, they got to have that 4-year computer science degree, had to graduate from Prime, or, what do you see? What do you look for those foundational pieces?
Yeah. So first off, I talk about my own background to say what I know, and that is I'm self-taught. I do believe, like you said, that people can come from any number of backgrounds. That might be, any type of school, a community college, a state college, a private college. They might come from teaching themselves. They might come from a boot camp. All of that is okay. And the number one thing I'm looking for is people's ability to be flexible and learn and adapt. In the time I've been doing this, pretty much every project I've ever worked on, managed, had oversight on, I've had to learn something. So if you can put yourself in a spot where you can demonstrate your ability to learn and be flexible, that's going to put you ahead of most of the other candidates. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm talking to people. The second part of that is there's a really great video out there. It's a Simon Sinek video where he talks about a trust and performance scale. Maybe you've seen it.
Yeah.
I'm really looking for people that I can trust. To me, if you're the best performer, but I can't trust you, that is something that's probably not going to work out long term. I'm often thinking, what is the company I'm working at? What's it going to be like in 3 to 5 years? Can I hire this person? Will they be there? And will we still have a great working relationship? So along with that flexibility and ability to learn is that I want to have that trusted working relationship so I can really turn people loose on solving problems.
Yeah, and so that's the hard thing for me, though, Tony, because, the things you mentioned, those are things that are hard to write out in a resume or put in my GitHub repo, right?
Absolutely.
So how, as a potential candidate, can I show you that I'm flexible, that I want to learn and that I am trustworthy? What are ways I can do that other than just write it in my summary or my cover letter? What ways have you seen work for you?
Yeah. So when I'm interviewing, some of the things that I hear from people is that if I'm always acting for practical experience. Tell me about a time you've done this. That time could be on a weekend. That time could be at a boot camp. That time could be at college. That could be at your career over the last 20 years. But I'm listening for different examples. As people continually return to the same example over and over, it maybe demonstrates some of that rigidity where they're used to doing one thing. I'm looking for that person that's like, oh yeah, and then I did this, and then I did this. Spoiler alert: if you come to an interview with me, I'm gonna ask you this question. I'm gonna say, um, so I've been at this a really long time, and I love learning. Was there something that you read or you've seen recently that you found really interesting and that you learned?
Hmm.
Um, and people automatically say yes, whether they have or they haven't. So be prepared for my follow-up question that's going to say, yeah, of course, I love learning. And I'll say, do you have a specific thing you could tell me about? Because I love learning too. And it's the people that can respond well to that and say, yeah, I saw this blog post on Medium. I saw this Kurt Schmidt guy talk to somebody on the Schmidt list. Or I went to this meetup and I learned this thing. When they have an answer for that, that is a clearly telling thing for me.
Makes sense. Yeah, and again, I think it goes back to being able to, speak to why you do your developer, not necessarily like what you know, right? It's what's driving you, right? I think that's like you're
Absolutely.
saying, just as important as the skill set, right?
Yeah, you can have all the skills in the world, but you got to have some drive too. At Irish Titan, we talk about 5 things that we look for. We call it POTUS, not the POTUS like the president, but the POTUS like the Irish Titan things we're looking for. And that's passion, ownership, teamwork, impact, and skills. So skill is just 1/5 of what we're looking for. There are, passion is important. The ability to sit in a team and ask for help and provide help when others ask is also very important to us. So that you can do that. You can own what's given to you, and you just you love doing it. So
Yeah, and I think it's important, like you said, especially if let's flip it and say I'm a developer looking for a job, is that a place that clearly defines what it looks for and what its values are, right? I mean, I think, you know, if you're new, you want to take any job, right? If you're looking for that first one. But I definitely recommend to people to do their research on the organizations a little bit and find out what their culture is like a little bit. Is that a place where I'm going to grow and learn, or am I just going to get handed tickets all day
yep.
long, right?
Yeah, and I would say we're kind of looking at this from 2 angles, right? From the hiring manager side of things, um, I think that's important too to be able to articulate what you're looking for, because I can say, as I've hired people through the years, every experience you can imagine has come to me, and you have to be able to articulate what it is you do, how you do it, what's important, what culture you have, because there are so many jobs out there that a developer could choose over your job. If you can't articulate that, you're putting yourself behind the places that can.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I think again, going back to what you said, is like clearly defining expectations, clearly defining the role, right? So I know,
Hmm.
let's say, there's a big difference between like the two-person startup and the targets of the world, for example. But if I'm a startup and I'm looking to build like my first app or something like that, and what would you recommend, Tony? Like, should I just go to Upwork and try to find a dev, or should I go to an agency? What, in your opinion, what have you seen work? Because I talk to a lot of folks that are kind of, they've got this great idea, but they're not technical people, and they need to get into development, and
Yeah.
they don't even know where to start. What's your advice?
Yeah. So I picked up this trick a few years ago from a guy online that is called Rants, and he calls it the must-have list. And I'm a big believer in it. So if you're going to go do a startup, or you're working at a big corporation or anywhere in between, and you're going to be involved with hiring and deciding who to hire, open up a spreadsheet one night and write down the names of every person that you would walk on hot coals with to work with again. technical, non-technical, or otherwise, and write down what makes them great people, and why you would want to. And you probably end up, with a few in there. My list, I think, has about 35 right now. And so what I do is whenever I have an opening, I open that list and I look through it, and I might reach out to some people on the list, whether they're a good fit for the position or not, whether they're looking or not, and just go have a coffee with them and tell them that I'm looking and articulate what I'm looking for. And oftentimes, that person I might not be able to work with again, but they might know somebody. Like, Kurt, you're on my list. I would walk on hot coals to work with you again. Right. So when I have an opening, I might reach out to you and say, you want to get coffee? And I might not be able to hire you to be a developer, but you might say, you know what? We talked to this person and didn't hire them, but I did think they were great and you should talk to them. And so building that network out and having that spreadsheet of your must-haves and going to those people repeatedly, I think gives you an opportunity to expand that net you're trying to cast when you're sourcing.
I, lo- I love that. I think to your point, being intentional is really important instead of just posting something out there on LinkedIn or whatever and saying, but going back to that network that you built. And if you don't have that network, you better start, right? you better start,
Yeah,
better
I
start
think
building it.
everybody could write a list of people they've enjoyed working with.
Yeah.
That's your network.
Okay,
Start there.
cool. Well, I want to get into a controversial subject, which is code challenges. So for years and years, I've heard horror stories about these things. I've heard people say they're must-haves. I've heard people say never do. I've heard experts, and important people in the engineering field talk about the differences with these things. You've created code challenges. You've done the whole. I've seen the whole gamut. Where are you at these days on the code challenge? What should it look like? Should it be
Yeah.
done? What are your general thoughts?
Yeah, so like you said, I've created one, I've administered one, I've built scoring rubrics. I've tried to do that in the past. Right now, I'm not doing any. I've seen both the positive and negative effects of them, I think. So they do provide an excellent baseline when you're trying to determine someone's technical skill. What they do not demonstrate is how that person learns, how that person works with somebody else. It is only measuring skill. So what I would prefer instead, some people use whiteboarding, some people use homework, some people use code challenges. I would prefer when we do interviewing for someone to say, bring in a code sample that you're proud of, and let's talk through it. It can be anything. One of the negatives around those as well, if you have a standard one, is you're going to miss out on some really good applicants because people are going to opt out because they have families or they have life going on around them, or they're going to opt out because they're far enough along in their career that they think they can demonstrate, their skills without that. You're going to miss out on people.
Hmm.
So I like having them bring in a piece of code and saying, let's talk about this. You're proud of this. Um, and instead of saying that's wrong, that's right, saying that's an interesting decision. Why did you choose to do it that way? And having a discussion about the person's mental process that they were going through when they made the decision to write a piece of code.
Yeah, because again, it goes back to you're trying to figure out, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, like how do you make decisions?
Yes.
How do you go through? Because that's what being a developer is. It's just constant decision making all day long. And if you don't have a good understanding about how this person does, they might be someone that sits there and treads water and never asks for help. Or, again, development's so much different than back in the day. Now, I mean, we joked about putting a requirement of having 3 years of Stack Overflow experience on our
Yeah.
job descriptions,
Yeah.
right?
There's no more trips to the library to find the book with the answer.
Right.
So,
Yeah, right. Let me see your library card.
right.
um, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, so let's say, I do want to do a code challenge because maybe, do you find that like you said, bringing in that piece of code or the whiteboard challenges, what would you suggest for somebody that's maybe a little bit newer to hiring developers?
Yeah. So I don't think whiteboarding is going to get you the people you want because that whiteboarding experience doesn't actually mirror people's everyday coding, how they work, right? And so It doesn't, like you said, a developer is going to use Stack Overflow. They're going to use Google. They're going to figure out problems tactically and hands-on as opposed to drawing it on a board for somebody. So I think if you want to go code challenge, it's important to keep it light, keep it small, keep it focused, and make it small. It might be something as simple as, hey, here's a CSV with 100 sizes of boxes. Tell me how much wrapping paper I need to wrap them up. You can ascertain a lot from somebody spending 60 minutes
Yeah.
writing a piece of code. You don't have to hand out a monolithic, it's going to take you 8 to 24 hours. And then what comes along with that is once somebody does it, it comes back in, and you have to make an investment on your team to say, okay, who's going to score these? How are these going to be scored? How will it be done fairly? And how do we ascertain who's coming in for the next step?
Right.
So if you have a smaller code sample, it's also a lower effort to figure that out.
So let's talk through just the hiring process in general, right? So a lot of places they kind of do a first interview, right? Kind of the "Are you a jerk?" sort of interview, right? Just to figure out like, will you be a good fit for the team? And then it kind of moves into more technical discussions, right?
Right.
Generally, what do you see in terms of steps in a hiring process that you found successful to building a great development team?
Um, the first thing I want everyone to realize is speed is important. Um, you can have the best process in the world, but if you offer second or third, the person you're trying to hire is gone. So develop a process that's quick. So what I like to do, I think of it as sourcing, number one, screening, number two, and hiring, number three. Now those can all have different components at every company. When you're sourcing, you're trying to find those right people, and I think it's important for hiring managers or to be involved with that. I think you should invest, an hour of your day every day trying to source somebody. A lot of people offload that to a recruiter or someone to find you people, but um, you know better what you need than that recruiter does, no matter what kind of relationship you have. So you should put some effort into that. Um, Once you have sourced some people, you have to go to where they're at. So, pay attention to what's going on the internet. On LinkedIn right now, there are a lot of people that have a little green circle around their image, and they're using the open to work hashtag. So if you know what you're looking for, you can start to see some of those patterns. Where can I find people? Um, and the second part of that sourcing is make sure you've written a really great job description. We were talking earlier about being able to articulate all those things that are important, but not
Right.
only be able to articulate them, but I think if you think about Postel's law, John Postel was a guy who worked on the TCP specification, and he talked about be conservative in what you send and liberal in what you accept. And I believe in that a lot. So I'm going to be conservative in what I ask for. I'm not going to ask for 10 years of React experience. I'm going to say familiarity with React,
Hmm.
right? And I'll be liberal in what I accept. Is someone at 3 years or 10 years, or that's always the thing is you want to make sure you're not excluding anybody. I also take job descriptions that I write, and there's a website out there that I go to where I scan them for tone to make sure they're not too masculine or not too feminine, that they're right down the middle so that we're not, again, excluding anybody. And then once you have that job description that's balanced and you can get it out there, that's really going to help people buy in to wanting to actually come work for you, which is step one. From there, moving on to screening. Typically, like you said, there's that first screen call. I like to do those myself and talk to the person because ultimately they're going to be working for me. And so that's usually pretty quick. And I would say to anyone doing those calls, screen each other. Let that person screen you too. And continue to articulate that story, that vision that you outlined in the job description. And I would say also, if you're looking to be more inclusive or if you have a diversity problem where you work, prioritize people that are getting those interviews. If you know someone is a minority or a person of color, immediately have them in for an interview. Give them the benefit of the doubt,
Hmm.
Um, and I would say at the end of that 30 minutes, no matter who you're talking to, make a decision. At the end of that 30 minutes, before I get off the phone with somebody,
Yep.
I say, all right, let's set up the next interview right now. Or, hey, thanks for your time. I don't think this is going to work. I try and make that before we're even off the call.
Hmm.
There's no point in dragging it out. Keep it
Right.
speedy.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I think a couple things you said in there. One of the things that I see on the developer side, I'm getting hired, is one of the biggest mistakes they make is a lack of asking questions. I've always believed an interview should be 50-50. But and as I'm sure you've experienced, I mean, I've literally gone through an hour long interview about 30 minutes in and being like, what questions do you have for us? And crickets, right?
Yeah, that's I loathe that question. Like you get to the point of an interview and everyone kind of looks at their watch and you're like, "So, you got any questions?" I think you can better prepare yourself for that and say, "Hey, appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk with us today. Let me tell you a little bit about us," and start the conversation going where you get a chance to again articulate that story, that why you should work here, and then let people naturally ask questions as you're talking, and make sure you pause so they get a chance, and make it clear that you want them to ask questions. That sort of blank look where you stare at each other and say, anything else? Then, oh, I guess we're done.
Yep.
Just doesn't usually work out.
No, it doesn't. Let's talk about the contract side of things too. So maybe you do give a job offer. Like what have you found works best for actually getting that offer over to someone, getting them to accept?
Yeah.
Like what if it's what So you've made the decision. Yep, this is the person we're going to go after. Then what?
Yeah. So first off, always make your offer by phone or video chat. Don't just email over an offer that says, "Hey, congrats, here's your offer." Always hop on, get on a video chat, get on the phone, make sure that you can sense the excitement of the person, help build that. And I think the other really important thing is when people choose to come work for you, it's often under the fog of war. They don't really know what they're getting into. You kind of don't know what you're getting. You have a good idea, but you've made a 3 to 5 year decision based off of a couple hours worth of data. So I think it's really important when you write that offer letter. People are going to get that and they're going to read it, and they may or may not accept the first one, but once they accept and they have a weekend, they're going to go back and they're going to reread that letter over and over and over. They're going to check it 3 times. They might come back and say, "Hey, now that it's Monday, I would like some more vacation." Something like that could happen. So I think when you write that offer letter, don't just make it about the offer. You've spent all this time on your job description and your interviews. Um, Put something in there about some objectives you have for them when they join the company. Put some information about projects they might be working on or problems that the company is having you're hoping they can help solve. And now when they go back and reread that offer letter, they're starting to get their wheels turning. You're effectively onboarding them at
Right.
the offer letter point. And then you're going to have less no shows. Like that does happen. It hasn't happened
Sure.
often, but it happens to everybody where you make an offer, you get to the day, they're supposed to be here, and you get a call from the front desk, and they say, "This person didn't show up yet. Do you know where they're at?" And you just get that pit in your stomach. You're like, "Yeah, I know where they're at." Uh, and I found the best way to like get past that is a really good offer letter.
Yeah, yeah, because then you're like you said, you're starting the onboarding process before they even show up or come to the first meeting, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think again, like back to your point, be just being very intentional. And so it's a lot of work, Tony. So I mean, you're running a team and you're also hiring. I mean, one thing I see that leaders can struggle with is making that time, being as intentional. How have you found being able to manage your time around the hiring process versus the actual management of the work type of stuff? How do you balance that?
For me, hiring is everything. You know, it is the most important thing I'm doing. Whether it's a phone screen or an interview or an offer letter, I have to make time. If I don't do that, the team is going to continue to they might be buried in work, and the team, we're not going to catch them up. It's going to continue to fall behind. Getting that hire in the door is the number one priority and the number one thing I can do for the team, and I'm in charge of and responsible for the care and feeding of that team. right? So
Yep.
if you don't make time, you're going to compound issues. Make the time. And oftentimes as you're talking to people that are in this process, they are emailing, calling, visiting you either early morning, late afternoon, maybe a lunch. It's almost an off hour thing, you know?
Yep.
So I've found that it kind of lines up in spaces that I have time already. So it just takes away a little bit of that free time that I already have. But I know that once I do make that hire, it's going to be my time will open back up. It's only for a short period of time this is happening. Um, and the last thing I'd add on to that is, I do talk a lot about needing to do that stuff, but also having invested in the development of a few individuals on your team that you can trust that can take some parts of this process off of you is important. If you're a two-person startup, you might not be able to do that. But, um, I have a couple team members on my team that handle some of the interviewing, and they come back and we have a discussion. What did you think? Is always the question. And I'm a big believer in having those discussions. If somebody's not a yes, they're a no. Like
Yep.
it's like maybe it's like nope, not what we want. We're
Yeah,
looking
it's
for
either
yes.
hell yes or hell no.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Okay, so last question, Tony. If I'm a developer, I'm looking for that, either my first job or just a job. I mean, what are some things besides obviously having a decent, well written resume, or like you said, I can go and have open for work on my LinkedIn profile? What are
Mhm.
ways that you've seen in the past that really make a developer attractive to you? What is it? Where do you see it? How do they present
Yeah.
it? What works?
So some things that get my attention. Um, so immediately when I get an application, a cover letter is a big deal. Um, you have the opportunity to demonstrate you are actually really interested in working with me on our team. And you can demonstrate that by doing a little bit of research on the company you want to go work for and say, hey, I went to the website. I love, if you were talking about Irish Titan, I love working on a smaller team. I am really interested in e-commerce. I had this experience where I worked in retail before I
Mm,
got into development.
right.
Tell me the story. Tell me what has you interested in working for us. And that is going to make you stand out. I would also say have some kind of presence on the internet. Every person that applies, I do go Google them or look them up on LinkedIn, and see, hey, do I know anybody that knows this person? So if I get an applicant and I don't know them, I might go online and type their name into LinkedIn and see like, oh, they know Kurt. I should give Kurt a call as a reference and say, hey, you know this person. How well do you know them? Do you think they'd be a good fit here? So that network is pretty darn important.
Yeah, because I think some people are a bit naive when it comes to that, right? I mean, um, going and reviewing their repository, their GitHub account, or things like that, and seeing how things are organized. I would even look at like how the files are named.
Yeah,
Is it intentional? Is it
tabs are spaces, man. Like
right?
no, no,
Oh, that's a whole nother show, Tony.
we don't have time for that
We don't
today.
have time for that
Uh,
today.
but yeah, you can go look at any public repositories, or if somebody has a portfolio site, you might
Right.
go to it. And there's so much you can tell from the browser now. You can inspect the site, you can look at the source code, and you can see the decisions people have made. You can see they chose to use a specific framework. You can see how much they may or may not value HTML. There's just so much you can tell from just a quick peek.
So clean up your act is what you're saying.
Right. Everything's got to be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's cool. Well, Tony, I want to thank you for joining me. If I want to know more about Irish Titan, you said you're hiring. Where should I go to find out more information?
Yeah, you can go to irishtitan.com and you'll be able to look there. We have a couple careers open. Actually, one of them right now is a software engineering position. So if you're interested, send in an application, and in that cover letter, make sure you say, "Hey, I heard you on the Schmidt list, and I'll probably want to talk to you."
Yeah, we're gonna have to get that Irish Titan slash Schmidt list contact page going.
Nice.
Use code Schmidt list too. No, okay. Anyways, Tony, thank you so much for joining me. I always enjoy our conversations. I always learn a lot, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kurt.
Cool. All right, guys, before we go, we are going to make a quick thing again about that we are hiring at Foundry. So check out foundrymix.com/careers. You hear Tony, they're hiring over at Irish Titan. Great company. Love Darren, love Tony. They do great work over there. So check them out as well. If you haven't yet and you're watching this and you like the content, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and all the other buttons. Hit all the buttons. Just hit them all, except for this one. That one's not a good one. But and only if you like the show. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming and joining me today live. And if you're watching this later on, make sure you hit subscribe because we've got a ton of amazing shows with people. Probably almost as good as Tony, but we'll see. So thanks for watching. We'll talk again soon.